Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Blood Bowl. The game of Blood Bowl is literally a game of football played in the fantasy world of Warhammer. Each team starts with 12 players represented by these miniatures. They will come unpainted. These are ones that I've painted. You'll also notice if you have bought the new version, Edition 4, that I am playing on a different board. This is a smaller board, but otherwise ostensibly the rules are the same. The two teams that come with the box are the human and the orc teams. Mostly you'll want to start with 12 players on each team, but only 11 will play per game, so I'll remove these two guys. Within each team we have positions. The humans have blitzers, throwers, catchers, and linemen. The orcs have black orcs, blitzers, throwers, and also linemen. Each of those player types have their own special abilities, which I'll get into later. There's a coin in the box with which you are to flip to decide which team will choose to kick or receive. The kicking team sets up first. The rules with the setup are no more than 11 players on the field, which we currently have. Let's say the humans are kicking off. So we start with 11 players on the field. Other setup requirements are no more than 2 players in each side zone. That's the area between the edge of the field and this little white line. There's one on the other side. And then the rest of your players can set up anywhere behind the line of scrimmage or on the line of scrimmage if you wish, and between those two outside edges. Once that team is set up, the other team will proceed to do the exact same thing. You must have 3 players on the line of scrimmage. The line of the scrimmage is the center line. Once both teams are set up, the kicking team then places the ball anywhere on the receiving side of the field. However, be aware that you will roll for scatter and move up to 6 squares in any direction. So if you place it there, there's a high likelihood that it will roll off the field and the human team will get to just give it to one of their players. Once that has been placed, you'll roll on the kickoff table. I won't worry about that at the moment, other than say you're rolling 2 dice on the kickoff table and do what it says. Then roll an 8-sided die to see which direction it goes. The template in the Edition 4 will look a little bit different to this, but 8-sided die to decide which way it goes, and a 6-sided die to see how many squares. So if that was our roll, the ball would end 1, 2, 3, 4, would land there, and then the ball scatters one more time. Say it scatters there as a bounce, so the ball comes in, bounces, and finishes there. At this point, the game starts. Receiving team must move their turns counter along to the first thing. That's the first thing you need to do in each move. There is a rule called the illegal procedure rule. I suggest not to play with it. Just remind each other to keep moving the turn counter along the track so you can keep track of which turn you're up to. When you get to the turn 8 finishing for both teams, that's the end of the half. We set up again to kick off, with this time the human teams would be kicking and the orc team receiving. The rules that you need to know before you really get into the game are movement. Each player has their own amount of movement depending on which race they are from and which position they play in. So for example, a movement of 6 is probably about the standard movement. This player, a human thrower, he has a movement of 6, so he can move in any direction, including diagonally, 6 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example. The only other thing to watch out for is a thing called tackle zones. So a tackle zone is all of the 8 squares that surround the player that you're looking at. If you need to move through a tackle zone, you'll need to make an agility roll. There is an agility chart that is in the rulebook. Once again, I'm using the old one, but the new one looks very similar. You look up the player's agility. A standard agility is 3, which would mean you need a 4+ on a 6-sided die to be able to make that particular movement. However, underneath that, there are also modifiers. So for making a dodge, you get a +1, which means you actually only need a 3+ to get past that particular player. So he would move 1. You don't roll for moving into a tackle zone. You only roll for moving out. So you need to roll for that particular movement there. If you're moving into another tackle zone, it's a -1. And if there's 2 tackle zones on the square you're going to, that would be a -2. If you wish to tackle a player that is next to you, so this player might choose to tackle this player, you would roll one of these dice to see what happens. So you look at their strengths. Both of these characters have a strength of 3. These guys here, the Black Orcs, are a little bit stronger. They have a strength of 4. So if my human thrower of strength 3 is attacking the Orc Blitzer of strength 3, I would just roll one of these dice and do what it says. If my human thrower of strength 3 is attacking a Black Orc of strength 4, you would roll 2 dice, and the Orc coach would decide which one has effect. It's pretty much the stronger player is always the one that's going to select which die actually happens. So what do the dice mean? If you roll this side, it means that the player that is being attacked, the defending player, is knocked over and pushed back. You can push them back to any of the 3 squares straight behind them. So, so if these 2 were in a fight going straight, these are the 3 squares that could be pushed back to. If it was on a diagonal, it would be the corner 3 squares for that particular roll. If you are to roll this one with a little exclamation mark in the middle, it's the same effect as the player knocked over, unless the other player has the dodge skill. If the other player has the dodge skill, treat it as just a pushback. The arrow, that's just a pushback. So that would look like pushing into any of those 3 squares behind, but he stays on his feet. That roll means that both players are knocked over unless they have the block skill, and this means that the attacking player falls over in the square he's in, which would look like that. If the player that falls over happened to be carrying the ball, that would then scatter and give the other team a chance to pick the ball up. Once per team turn, you're able to use one of your players to do a blitz action, which involves both running and blocking. The block can be at the beginning or the end of the blitz action, or even in the middle if you wish. However, you need to call that you're doing the blitz action before you do it, rather than taking a block and then saying, oh, that's my blitz action, so that your guy can keep moving. If the block fails, obviously the blitz action can't happen, but the blitz action has been used for the team turn. When a player gets knocked over, the attacking player will roll 2 dice. Against the armor value, you need to get higher than the listed armor value of the particular player in order to injure them. Once you get past that number, and every player has a slightly different number, 7 is probably about standard. 8 and higher is really good. If you beat the player's armor value, you then roll on the injury table. A roll of 1 to 7 is resulted in stunned, which means you put the player face down. An 8 or a 9 moves the player to the knocked out spot, and a 10 or higher goes to the dead and injured, and they miss the rest of the game. In the knocked out spot, you can get out of the knocked out spot once you're setting up for another drive, so after a touchdown or at the beginning of the second half. Players who are knocked down, if they're on their front, at the end of that team's next team turn, they'll roll the player over. If they're lying on their back, it will cost them 3 movement points to stand up, and then they can move as normal. If they wanted to attack, that would be the player's blitz action for the turn. There are 2 ways to get the ball to the other end of the field. Firstly, a player will need to pick up the ball so they can do something with it. You'll need to roll on that agility table I showed you earlier. You can then either run the ball up the field, so you'll need to do dodge actions to get past these players, if that's the case, or you could pass the ball up the field. There are 2 types of pass. One of them is a handoff. A handoff looks like running up to a player using however many movement you use, and then you pass them, move the ball across to their base, and they will roll just to catch the ball, once again on that same agility table. The other action you have is you can move first if you wish, but you need to then do the pass straight away. Once again, the rage rule looks a little bit different in the new version. You would measure how long the pass is. In this case, it would be a long pass from that player to that player. and look on the agility table to see what the modifiers are. A long pass is a -1. He has agility 3, so he would normally need a 4 to make that particular pass. He would actually need a 5 or more on a single die to make that pass. Once you've made the pass, if it's accurate, you then need to roll on the agility table again to see if he has caught the ball. Once the player has caught the ball, assuming he hasn't moved already this turn, he's then able to run with the ball. That's the basics for Blood Bowl. The thing to watch out for is that you can only do each player can only move or do an action once per team turn. We have a house rule of once you've made a movement or done something with a miniature, turn them around so they're facing the wrong direction, and at the end of the turn, flip them all back around so they're facing the right direction again. However you wish to keep track of who's done what is absolutely fine, and I'm sure you'll find a way to remember what's happening, but sometimes you've got to watch out for things that are harder to do, because if you need to roll a 6 and you fail, there's a very high likelihood that your turn will end and it will become the other player's turn, especially if it involves moving the ball, with either passing or picking up the ball, or involves the person with the ball falling over. All of those would cause a turnover. The only other thing to watch out for in your first game is the handful of special abilities that some of the players have, or special skills. The ones that the humans and orcs use, so they're the only ones that you're going to really need to watch out for, is your blitzers have block. The block skill allows you to not fall over when that is rolled on a block die. The throwers have pass and sure hands. Pass allows you to re-roll the die if you don't like the result when you're trying to throw the ball. Sure hands allows you to re-roll the die if you fail to pick the ball up off the ground. Catchers have the dodge skill. The dodge skill allows you to re-roll when you're trying to dodge around another player, so going through their tackle zone. It also allows you to not be knocked over by this one. You just take a pushback result instead. They also have the catch skill, which allows them to re-roll if they fail to catch the ball when it's thrown to them. That includes a handoff. That was the human players. The Orc Team Blitzers have the block skill as well. Pass and sure hands for the throwers as well. And that's about it for their special skills. The only other thing that we need to watch out for is the rerolls down here. Each team has a handful of rerolls depending on the lineup of your team. You can use one team reroll per turn. Each dice roll can only be rerolled once. So if you fail to throw the ball and you use the pass skill to reroll that die and you still fail, you can't use a team reroll to then reroll that. Block dice are allowed to be rerolled with these. However, you only get one of these per team turn. In this case, the humans have 3 rerolls that they can use for the half, and you'll get those rerolls back for the second half to use again. I hope that's helped you get Blood Bowl to the table. I really love this game. I hope that you can get many hours of enjoyment out of this game. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please write them below. If you have any games that you wish to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email at thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to see what games I've been playing. And until next time, enjoy gaming.